Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang berusaha Haji Nur Hazani Mat Daud, Chairman of 10 Kuala Lumpur International Agriculture, Forestry and Plantation Conference, KLIAFP10, Zazdiza Rahman, Co-Chairman of 10 Kuala Lumpur International Agriculture, Forestry and Plantation Conference, Associate Professor Teknologis Dr. Syamsia Abdullah, Deputy Dean Research, Faculty of Plantation Agrotechnology, Universiti Teknologi Mara, Mr. Zairul Amri Zakaria, Director Quality Audit and Learning Resources, Nilai University, Best Paper Poster Judge, Professor Dr. Muhammad Osman, ATRI Advisory, Honorable Invited Speakers and Oral and Poster Presenters, distinguished international and local participants, guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning to all participants and also good day for any participant from other regions. First and foremost, Alhamdulillah, thank you Allah for the opportunity bestowed upon us to gather here this morning and witness the opening ceremony of the 10 KLIAFP10. It is my great pleasure to extend a very warm welcome to all of you today to the KLIAFP10, the flagship event of the WMIT Group Sendirian Berhad. This year, WMIT has invited Faculty of Plantation and Agrotechnology, UITM, to organize this event, the 10 Kuala Lumpur International Agriculture, Forestry and Plantation Conference, with a theme, Driving Forces and Threats in Agriculture, Forestry and Plantation, in collaboration with Nilai University. On behalf of the Faculty of Plantation and Agrotechnology, UITM, I would like to express my gratitude to WMIT for inviting me to officiate the opening ceremony. To all participants and speakers, local and abroad, from India, Nigeria, Indonesia, and of course my beloved country, Malaysia, who joining us virtually today. Thank you for your kind attention and presence. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe this conference will serve an imperative platform of bringing together researchers, practitioners, academicians, and government officers from all over the globe to share scientific progress, innovations, findings, exchange ideas, and to build a strong research networking for a proper and congruent research that will enhance knowledge for the betterment of humankind and the world. For the next slide, ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed our lifestyle. It has caused economic and social disruption, and today we have no choice than to meet virtually. Furthermore, the pandemic had a dramatic impact on the food system with direct and indirect consequences, especially on lives and livelihoods of peoples, plants and animals. Given the complexity of the system at risk, it is likely that some of these consequences are still to emerge over the time. Therefore, this morning, I would like to share my insight on the COVID-19 pandemic's impact on food security. For this slide, I will talk about the impact of pandemic. The different pandemics that humanity has experienced, such as SARS, Ebola, and swine flu, have had a great impact on the economy, the environment, and any human activity, such as agriculture, tourism, transport, education, health, mining, industry, commerce, and many more. Currently, humanity is facing another pandemic, the infection of the new coronavirus, which generates the disease that is now known as COVID-19. In year 2019, December 31st, the first case of infection of a new coronavirus was reported in Wuhan, China. Since that time, the report of globally confirmed cases of infection with this virus has had an alarming growth, now being the main global health problem, which is affecting the normal development of society and all its components. In Malaysia, the first case of COVID-19 detected on 25th January 2020, and currently we are in the MCO 3.0 due to the rise of cases again recently. Now for the next slide, from past pandemic experiences, it has been shown that quarantines and panic have an impact on human activities and economic growth, such as in agriculture activities. When there is an outbreak of infectious disease, there is also an increase in hunger and malnutrition. This situation worsened as the disease progressed, making movement restriction more and more stringent, causing labor shortage for the harvest or difficulties for farmers to bring their product to market. Okay. All right. The next slide I mentioned regarding COVID-19 pandemic actually is a global health crisis that is already having devastating impact on the world economy, both directly and through necessary measures to contain the spread of the disease. These impacts are also being felt by Malaysia in the food and agriculture sector. Based on report available in the MIDA website, the agriculture and services sector recorded a higher percentage of job loss compared to other sectors. While the supply of food has held up well to date, in many countries, the measures put in place to contain the spread of the virus are starting to disrupt the supply of agri-food products to markets and consumers, both within and across borders. The sector is also experiencing a substantial shift in the composition and for some commodities, the level of demand. And if you can see from this slide, okay, how damaging these impacts turn out to be for food security, nutrition, and the livelihoods of farmers, fishers, and others working along the food supply chain will depend in large part on policy responses over the short, medium, and long term. In the short term, government must manage multiple demands, responding to the health crisis, managing the consequences of the shock to the economy, and ensuring the smooth functioning of the food system. While the pandemic poses some serious challenges for the food system, in short term, it is also an opportunity to accelerate transformation in the food and agriculture sector to build its resilience in the face of a range of challenges. The Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO 2020, states that COVID-19 is affecting agriculture in two significant aspects. The first is supply and the second is demand for food. These two aspects are directly related to food security. So food security is also at risk. Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned, the degree of impact depends on the severity of the epidemics in the region as well as the level of measures taken by the government to handle the crisis. The impact hit the hardest on the poorest and most vulnerable groups. If we look to this slide, okay, on the demand side, populations suffers from loss of income, unable to afford food for their daily needs. as well as vulnerable groups are the most at risk, and then amplified by possible increase in the price of food. In the country level, you can see that food importer country pose greater risk also. And then while on the supply side, shock on production factors with low availability and or high price of the agriculture inputs, it will cause lower yield or decrease the supply. And then shock on production factors, for example, closure of factory producing, for example, fertilizers, and then probably farmers get sick, logistic bottlenecks, and etc. And we look another points amplified by possible increase in the price of food. In the country level, food importer, once again, they have posed greater risk. Okay. And here, I would like to explain more clearly what is food security actually. Food security exists when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for active and healthy life. With the recent COVID-19 pandemics, it cannot be denied that the coronavirus has underscored the importance of food security, the guaranteed access to a sufficient quantity of affordable, safe, and nutritious food. While the immediate crisis may be under the control, this is not the end of the story. How secure is food in Malaysia? And should we be worried about food security, especially during the pandemic? Experts highlighted that Malaysia's lack of research and development, lack of young talents in the agriculture industry, and dependency on other countries for food supply as issues to be addressed to ensure the country preparedness for future crises. And then for the next slide, how are going to fix this? All right. In light of the current situation, we should concentrate on resolving factors that have caused lagging in the food sector. At the forefront, to excel in the food security agenda, we have to be in the condition where all citizens have physical, social, and economic access to an adequate, safe, and nourishing food and fiber support. In other words, we need to lead a healthy lifestyle. We need to relook at the various factors of food security to ensure we address them holistically. We cannot just look at only demand and supply side, where food is supplied and is produced domestically, but other factors such as farm level determinants, including efficiency and productivity of farmers and smallholders, land and input constraint, policy and trade factors, as well as environmental factors should also be addressed. The rapid transmission of coronavirus disease has presented a unique challenge of both minimizing mobility directly due to COVID-19, while mitigating the negative impact of necessary preventive measures. This trade-off has been experienced both in developed and developing economies. While there has been significant progress in tracking the mobility of COVID-19 globally, there has been limited progress qualifying the disruption of COVID-19. Smallholder farming systems are also often less resilient to shock and have fewer support structures in place to decrease the impact and increase the rate of recovery due to shock as compared to the commercial farm. Such shock as COVID-19 will likely lead to disruption on both the demand side due to lost income from workers, reduction in tourism and restaurant activity, as well as the supply side due to production-related issues, such as disruption to input supply, labor availability, and food losses, and food wastage due to lack of storage facilities, and a slow shift in transportation. Additionally, the impact of COVID-19 on agriculture will be felt on both and biophysical aspects, such as production and access to input, as well as socio-economic aspects, such as access to labor, markets, or rapid shift in demand. Enough food is available globally, but COVID-19 is disrupting supply and demand in complex ways. Currently, there is no reason for the health crisis to develop into a global food crisis. Supplies of staple crops are large, production prospects are favorable, and cereal stocks are expected to reach their third highest level on record. Moreover, most countries have designated the agriculture and agro-food sector as essential and exempt from business closure and restriction on movement. For many countries, the direct impact of the pandemic on primary agriculture should be limited, as the disease does not affect the natural resources upon which production is based. However, the virus poses a serious threat to food security and livelihood in the poorest countries, where agriculture production systems are more labor intensive and there is less capacity to withstand a severe macroeconomic shock. Because food is a basic necessity, the level of food demand should be affected less by the crisis than the demand for other goods and services. However, there has been a major shift in the structure of demand, with a collapse in demand from restaurants, hotels, and catering, the closure of open markets, and a surge in demand from supermarkets. There are signs that business along the food chain are already adapting to shift in demand. For example, by switching production lines and increasing their capacity to manage larger inventories, moving to online platform and directly delivery to household, and hiring temporary staff. In all, but the poorest country, the biggest challenge for the sector come from the measures need to contain COVID-19. The necessary adjustment within the sector to comply with those measures, which may increase costs, and the need to find alternative market for product affected as people change their consumption habits in response to COVID-19. How are these disruptions being manifested across the food system? The limits on the mobility of peoples across borders and lockdowns are contributing to labor shortage for agricultural sector in many countries, particularly those characterized by periods of peak seasonal labor demands or labor-intensive production. Harvesting season is imminent for many products in the northern hemisphere, and a shortage of labor could lead to production losses and shortage in the market. In many countries, this comes on top of existing difficulties in sourcing seasonal labor. On the other hand, disruption downstream from the farm gate are in some cases causing surplus to accumulate, putting a strain on storage facilities, and for highly perishables, increasing food losses. For some products, supply side disruption are being compounded by demand side reduction. In particular, food typically eaten away from home and luxury item, for example, you can see below. In combination, these effects are putting a strain on farm incomes. Moreover, those farm household income losses may be compounded by reduce of farm income. The COVID-19 pandemic may also affect the availability of key intermediate input for farmers. For the moment, there do not seem to be shortage in producing regions of developed countries, although farmers may face extra difficulties in sourcing input due to additional restriction on the movement of people and goods. However, in some regions, the production of pesticide declined sharply and only resumed gradually after production plants were shut down following the outbreaks. Low availability and high price of input such as pesticide could weigh on yields and crop production in 2020 and 2021, particularly in developing countries. Closing borders or slowing down the transboundary movements, closing borders or slowing down the transboundary movement of seeds could potentially hamper seed supply chains and on-time delivery of seed, with negative impacts on agriculture, feed and food production over the next season and further into the future. For this slide, disruption to food supply chain. The need to meet social distancing requirement, for example, in packaging and grading fruits and vegetables, and in processing livestock products. In addition to absenteeism, is increasing costs and reducing production capacity, even as consumer demand in supermarket increases. The available workforce has also been reduced due to rising infection rates and absenteeism, and in response to lockdown, even in the critical sectors. In addition to disrupting supply, infection in processing facilities have in turn led to reduction in demand at the farm level. Lockdown and limits on the mobility of people are also affecting the provision of key food safety, quality and certification checks, including those that are required to facilitate trade, such as physical inspection of goods to certify compliance with sanitary requirements. What are the way forward? What are the ways that we could do to enhance the food security to face the pandemics? At this stage, some policy response that can be considered in developing a comprehensive food security strategy framework, including enhancing innovation and research development, educating growers on good management, supply and demand, post-harvest handling, as well as collaborative effort between university, industry, and NGOs. More importantly, who will be the driver for all this planning and development in the near future? The answer is our young generation. Increased R&D and high-tech and modern facilities will attract more young generation to the agriculture sector. By modernizing it and make it more user-friendly, if we can have farmers that work with technology like computers and smartphones, we can modernize our agriculture sector. And this transformation is required in order to get young people into farming and become agropreneurs and job creators. Technology is changing the world and farming is catching up. The introduction of everything from automated farm equipment to a wide array of Internet of Things, sensors that measure soil moisture, and drones that keep track of crop have changed the business of agriculture. Some experts even call this movement as Agriculture 4.0. A digital farm is more efficient and sustainable than its counterpart of the past. On a smart digital farm, crops are likely grown using precision agriculture. Tractors might be self-driving, and the harvest could be determined by digital imagery of the field. And the farmer is typically working with an agronomist to provide technology know-how. Therefore, greater innovation, research and planning should be emphasized in all aspects while embracing IR 4.0. While the use of internet and remote access for environmental and greenhouse gases monitoring, specialized software to control and integrate all parameters or variables, use of artificial intelligence and big data for smart farming can elevate the agriculture sector and food security. Ladies and gentlemen, to recap, food security exists when all people at all time have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe and nutritious food to meet their dietary needs and food preference for active and healthy life. Agriculture is one of the most important sectors in human development and is related to food security. Hence, both security and food security have a very strong relationship, and this relationship is being affected by events related to disease of COVID-19. The pandemic COVID-19 disease has a great impact on the action and activity of humanity. Agriculture is not outside this impact. Food demand and thus food security are greatly affected due to mobility restriction, reduced purchasing power, and with a greater impact on the most vulnerable population groups. As cases of contagion increase, government take more drastic measure to stop the spread of the virus, also influencing the global food system. The premise of any measure adopted should be to protect the health and food security of the population to detriment of economic growth, although some governments go in the opposite direction. Ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 pandemic has not ended yet until there is an effective vaccine or treatment. Everyone remains at risk. We all need to work together to protect ourselves and others. And the things that we can do are, first, avoid the 3 C's. Continue to practice protective measures. Continue to protect ourselves and others. And remember, always wash your hand. Before I end my presentation, I wish to congratulate the organizing committee for organizing this event of the KLIAFP10. I sincerely hope this important event will continue in the years to come. With that note, I declare the 10th Kuala Lumpur International Agriculture, Forestry and Plantation Conference open. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are proud to announce the recipients of the Best Oral Paper Award. The first paper is entitled The Dynamics Between Forest and Food Security, Case Study of Gunung Tebu Forest Reserve Terengganu by Huda Farhana MM, Fatin Nasiha TH, Muhammad Parid M, Mukrimah A and Nurliana A, Forest Research Institute Malaysia, and Wan Razi WA, Terengganu State Forestry Department. The second paper is entitled The Effect of Using a Combination of Chemical and Natural Tanning Materials on the Quality of Lencam Fish Skin as Raw Material for Commercial Leather Products by Sahubawa L, Permadi I and Lutfia S, Gajah Mada Universiti, Indonesia. And last but not least is a paper entitled International Standard Test Method for Determination of Alkalinity Content in Natural Rubber Latex Concentrate by Muhammad Afiq Muhammad Tajuddin, Malaysian Rubber Board. Congratulations to all winners.